Today, every day, small cap investors visit Agoracom knowing this is the day to discover the world's next great company, to have their dreams come true. That's why I take to the open road, to find them, to tell their stories, to engage them, to bring them to life, because they want to connect with you from your office, your phone, your home, anywhere. Agoracom, find your dream.
Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, our production of Agoracom, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives about recent important news. With us today to talk about big news is Bernard Tourillon. He's chairman and CEO of HPQ Silicon Resources. The company trades on the TSX Venture and the stock symbol HPQ. For our friends in Germany, on Frankfurt under UGE. Now, for those of you who are new to the story, and you might be because the press release that we're talking about today, HPQ is planning nothing less than to become a vertically integrated and diversified high-purity solar-grade silicon metal producer, as well as a manufacturer of solar cells of the P and N types required for production of high-performance photovoltaic conversion. Now, more than just lip service, the pilot plant equipment that will validate the commercial potential of this process is on schedule for an end of 2018 start. And the press release we're here to talk about today, to give you even more validation to all this, is the company secured $5.25 million in financing at a premium at 12 cents a share to what it was trading at when this news came out. And that financing comes from a combination of both the Quebec provincial government in Canada and Pyrogenesis Canada, a strategic partner in all this. Bernard, welcome to the show.
Thanks, George.
This is great news. I mean, I'm going to go into the details in a second, but that smile says all. How happy are you for the company and for its shareholders to have got to this major milestone?
I'm very happy, and but you know that Friday during the AGM we were still clearing a few last point with the lawyers.
It was right up to the last minute, huh?
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about that. What does it mean to you? You've got two big investors in this private placement, one being the government and one being Pyrogenesis, who's for all intents and purposes, your technology partner. Let's talk first about the government. What kind of rigorous review did you go through under the Créativité Québec program to qualify for funding from their end?
Créativité Québec is a very specific fund. It is designed to finance basically advanced R&D that will lead to commercial scale. So for us to be able to get those type of funding, we had to validate with their experts that our scaling up schedule would not lead us to another pilot plant afterward, but a first commercial plant. And so that was one of the big hurdles, the technical hurdle. You'll notice there's not too many. There's not that many resource companies that get the Créativité Québec, because the way resource companies are financed, it is through Ressources Québec, where you first need to have the typical 43-101. As a business plan, we chose to not focus too much energy on our resources and more on our technology. So that is already one check mark. And the second one is when you do a DD for a closing, for a financing, it's not the same thing with private equity people as with the government. The government, the lawyers have the time, because we're paying them, but their client is the government, to go and check everywhere, on your hood, everywhere else. So it's a long, tedious, and painful process. The advantage of going through it is that there are a lot of strategic mid-sized investors that says, oh, they're doing that DD, but if the government has gone through and done that DD, then that becomes of interest. So it opens many, many doors. Second massive advantage of this is that the way we structure the financing, not only we do it at a premium, but I don't know if people notice, we didn't have to pay any commission. So yes, at the end, legal costs around this are significant, probably around $100,000 to $125,000. But if we've gone the commercial route, a $1.8 million convertible debenture, probably gotten 10% commission to pay. The PP from Pyro, we probably should have paid 10% if it was anybody else. So in the overall, not only we get a premium, we don't have to pay any commission. We have now 2 strategic investors. So it's definitely moving in the right direction.
And that's, sorry to interject, and that's something I like as well. You hit the nail on the head, strategic investors. This isn't your typical private placement where you might get an investor start peeling off the shares in 4 months and 1 day from now, just to sit on a bunch of warrants.
George, it's a 5-year unsecured convertible debenture. It's a 5% interest rate, pretty low. Second of all, interest is capitalized over the entire period. So they're giving me, the government is giving us, not me personally, it's not me personally enjoying this, it's the company, it's all the shareholders that benefit from it. They're giving us the time required to advance this project. Okay? That is really phenomenal. It's unsecured, 5% convertible at 12 cents. It's like as if they were doing a PP, but they're not. The government's not structured to do private placement. That's not their business to do private placement. It's a long-term. In the French press release, they talk about a financial aid, right? This is literally the government helping us. But what people have to realize is
that's fantastic.
To get there, it's very complicated, right? There's a lot of hurdles to meet. They will only finance the last 20% of the costs. They have very demanding criteria for who is a strategic investor. I was clearly told that hedge fund would not allow it. And in the process, it was along, even though, you know, we have to declare that we're, you know, in the lobbyist scheme that we're talking to the government literally does not allow you to mention you're talking.
Does not allow you to mention what?
It doesn't allow us to mention that we're in discussion with them and even that the government is looking at doing something. It's,
oh, yeah, so you have to keep this under wraps for how long? 3-4 months?
In actual fact, okay, the first letter we got telling us that there was an interest from the government was somewhere in October of last year.
All right. So
and the conditions were like really mind-numbing, but I understand where they come from. All right.
It's taxpayer money. They got to be careful with it. They just can't throw it around.
They got to be careful, and even though the politicians like what you're doing, it's really the bureaucrats. You have to fit in to a government program. Now, the big issue was that the program we fit in was never designed for small junior listed companies. So we literally had to figure a way to put a square peg in a round hole. One of the ways they do it is instead of going up to the full 40% of the cost of the program, which they're allowed to, they only go to 20%. They only go to the last 20%, and you got to show everything else that's there. The other point that there is, and that's funny because I've seen some comments about, oh, it's sort of stupid. They're planning for cost overrun. It isn't me. Neither us or Pyro think we're going to get cost overrun because of the way our contract is structured and our work is being done. But in the government's checklist, margin for cost overrun.
Yeah, it's great, and it's great that they actually force you to plan for that, right? Because you're not planning for just the best case scenario. You're actually planning for contingency. I think it's a great thing. Are there any other benefits as a result of this agreement? Any other support or help that comes with this in terms of contacts or networks or access to, you know, research or people, anything else that comes out of a relationship this way?
There will be, okay, because now the government's with us, okay, so they're patient investors working for it. There is all that. It has a credibility in Quebec. It has a credibility when you talk to international investors. They like that. Concrete, left, right, and center. Not yet, but it's going to open door when I want to go talk to Hydro-Quebec, when I want to go talk to other type of people. Now, for me, the key point has been I wanted strategic, long-term investor to have a significant position in the company. Why? Because we know, at Pyrogenesis and ourselves, know that the process will work, okay? we know from the work we've done with Apollon that we can structure a process to go all the way to solar cell. That's going to be much cheaper than everybody else. We know that. So eventually, okay, our competitors will wake up to what we're doing, and they're going to want to, either get us out of the way or buy us out. I think getting us out of the way will be impossible now that we're structured, so they're going to have to buy us out. But having those type of strategic investors will give us more flexibility when we have those discussions. But now my goal is really to go back and market the story. I haven't been really going out to market the story to more short-term investors, okay, or even medium-term and longer-term investors, because their first question they're going to ask, oh, you guys need $3 million to finish your project, where it is. So I could excite them what I'm doing, because I'm good at exciting people with what we're doing. But then their first question mark would be, you need 3.8 million. Resolve that and come back. And then the guy would completely forgot who I am, what I do, whatever it is. So I've learned from this business is if you don't need to ask money, when you don't need money, that's when they give you money. When you need money, they don't give you money. And that's, if you take a look at our stock, that's exactly what it is. That's literally what happened. The reason why our share has been under pressure is because sort of the catch-22, without the funding, they don't think it's going to work, and we're not getting the funding because they don't think the technology works. Those are completely irrelevant, And I've seen so many.
The market's the market, and you got to satisfy things like that at the end of the day. And you've done that. But let's go on to more important numbers, because now it's like you've raised the Stanley Cup. You don't need to explain anything to anybody now. You've
noticed that it's like it was sort of like, okay, it's done. I put it on page 2, but I put more interesting stuff on page 1 that demonstrate how groundbreaking what we're working on is.
And this is what I want to talk about. This blew me away when I first saw this. And I'm reading a little bit, but people have seen the press release, but I'm reading. So now the question is, your technology, what would it do to the solar world at the end of the day, right? And what I've always liked is layman's terms example. Sometimes this business can be a little too technical, and people don't really know, how good is this. So, using the Hydro-Quebec stated goal of building a new 100-megawatt solar farm in the province of Quebec, it's easy to demonstrate the value of the PUREVAP process. So, if the solar cells for Hydro-Quebec were built in a solar farm in China, that would represent an import of, I'm just going to use round numbers, 56,000 tons of CO2, greenhouse gases. If those same solar cells were produced in Germany, it would be 35,000 tons of CO2. But cells produced using the PUREVAP QRR process, 2,154 tons of CO2. So compared to China, you're talking about rough math, 96-97% less greenhouse gases. And compared to what we're seeing here in Germany, 2 out of 33 is about 92%. Now, I'm just doing really quick back of the math. That's mind-boggling to me. Doesn't that create a massive competitive advantage that will almost be impossible to lose once the company gets to the market with these cells? And not that you're producing them today, that's still a little while away, but am I reading that wrong? Am I reading too much into that, or is that an unbelievable business competitive advantage?
You're totally correct. But what's behind that incredible business advantage is the fact that we're still going to do this much cheaper. All right? It's a known fact in the industry that if you can do solar grade silicon metal using metallurgic process route, all right, you will be much more efficient, much more cheaper. You'll use a lot less energy. Okay, the numbers we're talking about are based on the energy requirement to transform quartz to solar grade silicon.
Right.
Now, as I keep saying, metallurgic routes have been proven to work. The Achilles heel of the metallurgic route process is that because they're starting with a 98.5 SI, okay, which is, and they require very low boron, but they can get less than 10 ppm. Okay, it's very expensive for them in both terms of, in capex terms, for them to do it. So it requires a lot of equipment to purify from 98.5 down to the solar grade material.
Okay. Or up to.
Or up to. It's easy to understand if you can, in the first step, the same first step that everybody does, we can go close to 4N, 5N. Then the remaining step, which are known steps, okay, are going to be much cheaper in the capex size and the OPEX size.
What do you have a basic number you can give us?
Right now, the rough number we have, and this is what I wrote into it, we're cutting down about by 2/3 the number of steps required by 75% of the capex. And that means that our OPEX is going to be somewhere around 50% cheaper than where the market is.
So for everyone at home, capex meaning capital expenditure, the first initial investment in the plant.
Yep.
Using your technology, you're going to reduce, you can produce the same thing as the competition at 75% less investment. So if a plant needed $500 million under the old process, you might need $100 million or so, $125 million, because it's about 20.
About 1.5.
All right. And on the operating side, once that plant is up and running, if you're going to be able to produce the product at 50% less. So capex is 75% less, operating expenses 50% less, which is unbelievable. And you're still, and on top of that, you're reducing greenhouse gas emissions, which I think is the biggest one of all, because companies want their carbon credits. They want to be clean. They want to help the environment. They want to be very friendly. You're talking over 90% reduction in greenhouse gases. So, Bernard, I don't want to put more words in your mouth, but how do you not become the solar grade silicon king of the world in the next couple of years? What could possibly stop you?
Well, for us, not reaching our goal, not that we think we're not going to happen, but it's like anything else. It's a show me world. It's, nice talker and everything else is nice, but we have to deliver, and that's been what we were working on. It's been mostly behind the scene, the work we've been doing, but it's been very, very progressive, very, very well. The idea of us when we started all of this in 2015, 2016, we had ideas of grandeur, of going from lab scale to commercial plant in one shot by magic. Now it's not the same thing. We've done Gen 1, we've done Gen 2. Gen 2 is very important. We'll be doing Gen 3, and we know Gen 4 is the first commercial plant.
Yeah, you're far advanced. It's not as if you're just thinking this in theory.
It's no longer theories, and it's something. You got to remember that when we started this, Peter was like, what the hell are they trying to do? But it looks interesting, and their engineer convinced Peter that they could do it, and we've done it. And then we started to move and build, and every step we advance, every result we get, any operational failure we get in the Gen 2, we learn and we advance the process and we keep moving forward.
What does the next process look like? What's the next step in the next 6 months? Because you talk about the pilot.
Next 6 months, we're finally going to be able to talk about assembly of the Gen 3. Right?
Assembly and some production?
No. It's going to be assembly, getting it ready to move forward. The production is probably going to start end of the year, beginning of next year.
That's next 6 months. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, the next 6 months.
That's about where it is. But so far, there's always been like an unexpected thing that comes around and slow us down. So I'm trying to be more cautious because some people like to rack me over the coals because I'm supposedly a few weeks late. It's like, just the financing. When I wrote Q2, I was pretty sure it was finished because, to be honest, in March at PDAC, that's why we were at 12 cents, okay? The financing done, everything was resolved. Oh, anyway, us in the private sector. They get the public sector to get it resolved while we close August 13th.
Yeah. Hey, but better late than never. If that's the way it is, that's the way it is. That's
yeah. But I had to tell you, something like it. I was down in a 10 days window before the start of the election that they had to announce it. So.
Good point. So maybe, but before we go on to the next point, maybe we'll see HPQ Silicon as kind of an election darling. We don't know. Maybe somebody, I'm sure some politician may want to come by and show the the kind of things that have been happening under their watch in Quebec, and you'd be a classic example of something great.
Yeah, well, but whoever's going to be there, like who, the same government, another government, everyone's going to want to take. It's a Quebec-based technology. It's two Quebec-based companies that are developing this and everything else. And to this, I will give credit to the technical guys in the Quebec government. Got really excited with our process.
Yep.
You know, once we had their blessing, it's not really the right word. It's a more technical term for it. Once we had their technical blessing, everything felt comfortable.
Hey, on behalf of all shareholders, if the Quebec government technical guys are watching, last point.
Yes.
Because the three things that really blew me away in this press release, to me, this is one of the best press releases I've read coming out of you guys. You guys had so many great ones. So first, the Quebec government and the rigorous, process they had to go through. Second, that you're talking about in some cases 96% reduction carbon footprint using your process. The third is, and you can't take this for granted, your partner on this from day one has been PyroGenesis. Mm-hmm. They are in the trenches with you. So me, when I'm at home, I say, they're in the trenches with you. They see everything. They're the ones that see everything. And if someone was to think, well, maybe Bernard's not telling us the whole story. Maybe HPQ is not telling us the whole story here. And there are some things that could be wrong, or there's something that could be delayed. And you know what? They'd be right to think that way. Not because of you personally, but let's face it, in the small cap space, there are exaggerations and embellishments and things like that. But part of this financing is PyroGenesis now moving up their total ownership in HPQ up to 9.6%. And I'm going to read a quote from Peter Pascali, who is the CEO over at PyroGenesis, put out his own press release about this very thing. And he said the following: the fact that after significant due diligence, the governor of Quebec is now a significant player with HPQ speaks volumes for not only the progress we have made so far, but the potential going forward. I expect that this is just one of many doors that will now open up for HPQ. We're working with a great team, with a great product, and we would not preclude increasing our ownership in HPQ in the future should the opportunity arise. That, to me, there's someone who's watching all the laundry, the dirty laundry, the clean laundry, the whole process, and is cheerleading probably more than anybody. So to me, when I saw that the next day, what does that mean to you to have Peter Pascali come out and say that? And considering PyroGenesis, a company that's got the U.S. Navy and the U.S. aircraft carriers and DARPA and all these unbelievable high-profile customers and things like that, what does it mean? What did it mean to you to see Peter put out that statement?
Oh, for me, the relationship with Peter and working with the team at PyroGenesis has been great. It's been an eye-opener in the way to work, and it feels very, very good that we've reached that level of trust and confidence that we're really executing on a very strong business plan. As Peter said at our AGM, he likes to build what's called multiple stool type of corporation. I'm happy to be one of the stool that he's building up, and I'm happy he's also with us. So at one point people were just saying, oh, he's just in there for the royalty, the payments, and everything else. No, he's putting in some of his own money into it.
He's putting his money where his mouth is.
He's putting his money where his mouth is. But I think what people haven't realized, and I'm talking here maybe more for the PyroGenesis investors looking at it, says they don't understand what it is. In actual fact, okay, we only have $1 million left to pay to build the plant, the pilot equipment. The balance of the contractual agreements to operate the machine. Okay. So in a cash position, he is, Pyro and is fully forward. He's sort of betting his profits on our success, which is great for us. So, and this is more of the message. It's actually a well thought out structure and everything else. The Quebec government's on board. It guarantees that we have the money to pay, get everything moving. PyroGenesis is on board. We both doubt strongly that we will have cost overrun and need to use it. And the reason for this is because we had the Gen 2. Okay. And it's not something, we went long and explaining about the Gen 2 and everything else, but the Gen 2 size of the machine means that it's not long to fix it if we break something. The same repairs in the Gen 3 would take a month and a half, easily. Okay. So the Gen 2 can be used to push really to the maximum until it breaks, and then it says, okay, don't do this with a big machine. And that's been a process and everything else. And I'll give a little example that I gave at the AGM. You know, the first time any machine that works ultra high temperature needs a refractory system inside. It's just normal. That's how you deal with a high temperature process. First time we did the refractory on the Gen 2, no problem. We redid the refractory, and we ended up getting some issues related to humidities in the concrete. It created a problem with the operational of the machine, but then it created for us an opportunity to figure out something that we probably wouldn't have checked if this hadn't happened. We got to make sure that the refractory is very, very dry before we start. It's not a big thing, but it's one of those small things that, imagine if it would happen on the big machine, it could have taken us a big time. But we figured it out, you know, because we can dismantle the machine and the guys can play around with it. So that's what I'm saying. We're following such a systematic step-by-step process to get us to where we want to go. And this is the logical extension of it. We've invested $5 million to get the project here so far. We feel very comfortable where it's going. Our relationship with Apollon has helped us, you know, strengthen us a lot of our core belief of how we can get there. And now it's just a question of executing on what we're doing. It. One of the biggest milestones we had to execute was the financing. It had become a stumbling block for investors. Okay, it had become a fear of what's going to be the dilution. When the stock was at 8 cents, the fear was the dilution. Dilution factor is going to be massive, massive. So it was something that was very transparent. It's been out there since the beginning, but now suddenly it became an issue. Why? Because the risk appetite market for speculative investors had dried up on the entire market. Therefore, it's much more difficult to attract investment. And this is why switching from what I call short-term investors are only interested in keeping the warrants and hope something works, to having strategic investors that are willing to be there for the long term.
Unbelievable.
That's the difference.
Yep, huge difference. Huge difference. Because now you've pretty much got, Bernard, you've pretty much got a clear runway for the next couple of years.
Well, we got what we need to get ourselves to proving at a commercial scale that our process works.
And at that point, when you get to that point, safe to assume, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I'll ask it. Would the Quebec government come in again to continue, you know, financing and moving it forward? So that could be a continued finance source for the company?
It could be, but once it's going to be there, it's going to be able to stand much more on its own. Then it's going to be, I'll give you an example, quick example. Ferroglobe, big company, multinational company. They're building a plant for about the size of what we're looking to do. They're doing a 1,600 ton per year metallurgic solar grade silicon metal. It's costing them $100 million. But the Spanish government is financing it up to 80% with the EU. Right? I have people approaching me from Taiwan. I don't know, our friends from Taiwan, again, they still want to talk to me. They're talking about doing it there. So once we have the process working, we will have the Quebec government plus. That's what I'm saying.
All right.
But this was the crucial investment at the crucial time, because we needed some people to say, wait a minute, we're willing to invest money on this project to see it to the next step.
Yeah. Congratulations. Congratulations.
That is significant premium, guys. You know, so it's like
premium.
I don't get people who are selling right now at 8 cents, 9 cents, but they have suddenly I've stopped.
Premium, not dilutive at all. Long term, don't have to work. I think congratulations. What you guys did was simply amazing, because not only did you answer, you know, it would have been one thing to complete a financing at 9 cents, dilutive. At least you'd answer the question, you got your finance. you didn't just answer that question. You gave everyone the best possible scenario ever, which is you brought in strategic investors, one being a debenture holder, and the other being a strategic, the government, the other being a strategic technology partner. That's the best thing that could have possibly happened. I don't think there's a better scenario that you could have envisioned. So I want to congratulate you, Bernard. We could go on more and more, but now that it seems pretty clear from what you're saying. Now you've cleared this hurdle. It seems like you want to pick up your activity, so we're going to have you back, especially because September is around the corner. So I'm looking forward to having you back and talking about the future of HPQ. But well done to you and your guys, and what you've accomplished on the business side and now on the corporate side.
Thank you.
You've been watching Bernard Tourillon. He's Chairman and CEO at HPQ Silicon Resources. The company trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol HPQ, and for our friends in Germany under UGE. If you look for more great information about the company, get to Agoracom, punch in their name or stock symbol, look for profile information, look at other interviews we've done with Bernard. Bernard, I think we've just like our 12th one we've done. So I believe how many interviews we've done, but every step of the way, one thing you'll notice is whatever Bernard has stated as a goal has actually taken place. Knock on wood, the company hasn't had any missteps. We haven't had Bernard on here talk about why they just went 2 steps backwards. So we're going to knock on wood on that. But today was a big day.
Trust me, there's a few people that can find ways that I've said something wrong, and they will. They will. We know them. That's anyway. They're sort of the comic relief anyway. So thanks. I love you.
Hey, at the end of the day, you're the guy laughing, right?
Yep.
The guy who laughs last wins at the end of the day. So congratulations, Bernard. Can't wait to have you back. Have a great rest of the summer here in the last couple of weeks of August, and looking forward to having you back in September.